Now we will pass on to another phase of the application of the binary. This phase can be termed dynamic, whereas the first was rather static. Again, a rough mechanical example. Take two equal and parallel forces and apply them to opposite points of a dense body. It is a pair of forces, and it makes us think of a rotary movement. This mental picture is just what is needed, and even more, the conception of a whirling, or as we may say, a tourbillon, a vortex. Where will we imagine it to be? This time in the astral plane. So as we have to imagine astral waves stirred up by the efforts of imagination and animated by willpower, just in the form of these tourbillons or vortexes, extending themselves like shadows or ever-widening circles on the surface of water, and growing according to similar laws. The mystery of the creation of such tourbillons cannot be told, of course, in a book or in general practice, but I shall take the risk of a slight intimation, in which man instinctively makes these vortexes in the astral and even sees their power of realization by means of individualized coagulations of matter as conjured up by them. This is connected with the question of neutralizations of the binary, life, death. Another initiatory binary, spirit, matter, has been neutralized by the astral or second plane. Therefore, I will now give the general outline necessary for the cognition of this important plane, and firstly of its dwellers. Generally speaking, acquaintance with them can be made by inductive method, which means relations with them and the recording of the result of those relations, or also by a deductive method, that is proceeding from the definitions known about the astral plane. The astral plane is, according to definition, mixed with the physical and mental planes. They interpenetrate one another, so in the astral must be visible the reflections of elements of those planes, which correspond to its sphere. Strongly condensed and grouped together, collective ideas have, as a reflection in the astral, the so-called astral ideas. Metaphysicians and other scientists like to catch these in the moments of their mental strivings, when a question arises regarding the selection of a form for the already beloved ideas. Often, the same astral idea may be caught by different savants from neighboring subplanes. Then we may see two or more systems arising which are strongly related, but not identical in form. Here, I would like to only remind students about the creation of infinitesimal calculus by Leibniz, at present called differential calculus, and also by Newton, who then called it a method of fluxions. When realized in the physical world, actions and phenomena are reflected in the astral plane, through the intermediary of higher or more subtle subplanes of the physical, as in a mirror. By means of this process, they establish themselves exactly in the astral, thereby forming the astral clichés of happening in the physical world. The astral plane is not limited by the narrow laws which apply in the three-dimensional space of the physical world. There, you can find clichés not only of the past, but also of future events. You may object, saying that future events are, to a certain degree, dependent upon the will and impulses of free individualities. My answer will be A. Yes, but to each desire, each intention made by you on the physical plane partially changes the clichés of future happenings, and can even annihilate them. What of the future will you then see in the astral? B. The higher the subplane in which you can catch the clichés of a future event, the less it changes and the better it forecasts things. Here we have a great mystery, that of free will, which is identical to the mystery of the fabrication of astral tourbillons in their general sense. From this comes a certain degree of obscurity in the exposition of this point, but those who are acquainted with this secret, which cannot be revealed in any writing destined for a wide public, know that the explanation is true. Here, I would like to make an important statement in the interest of readers and students of the tarot. All these extraordinary matters about the astral plane and its properties can be experienced only if one possesses a certain degree of concentration. That is, the ability to rule one's thoughts and stop them at will. Otherwise, it will only be a repetition of my own case of about 30 years ago, when I first met practical occultism by reading the works of Professor G.O.M., to whom I owe many of my own experiences in later years. At that time, it seemed to be very strange and impossible for me to become acquainted with the superphysical conditions of existence, astral ideas, egregors, and so on, as described in this book. But when I understood that the very key is just the ability of concentration, the subsequent training throughout many years allowed me to develop from a layman into a more knowledgeable person. That is what caused me to write Concentration. I do not wish to imply that all the peaks expounded in it are an unalterable condition for any study of Hermetism, but at least 3 of the series in that book must be performed in order that this present work will become a practical manual for the student, instead of just a cumbersome collection of thoughts and theories. However, it is time to return to our tarot. While scientists seek after astral ideas, even unaware of their existence, all kinds of clairvoyants, fortune tellers, and prophets long for the astral cliches, which they try to catch in a trance or in dream. That is, in the states when a human being is closer to the astral world. The easiest cliches to see are, of course, those of an extraordinary nature, having an unusual or fateful meaning. This gives the possibility of seeing and forecasting great crimes, catastrophes, as well as peculiar happenings of worldwide importance. Sometimes, even non-clairvoyant persons are able to receive impressions of such ominous events, if they are sufficiently sensitive at the time. Let us imagine that a man has a common evil desire, but makes no attempt to realize it on the physical plane. He only draws his dark desire on the astral plane, and so creates a kind of entity by condensing the astral according to his intention. This artificial being does not possess a physical body, but it is a kind of astrosome, and its correspondence to the human monad, spirit, is just the mental idea of the evil intention or wish. Such a being, according to the property of its monad, can act and influence only in one direction as intended by its unwise creator, man, who is usually unaware of his foolishness. Now, on whom will the influence of such a demon be exerted? Yes, firstly on the father of it himself, the draughtsman who created the astral picture of the evil deed. We will call this type of ominous artificial entity a larva. Such a larva will watch its father in order to prevent him from forgetting his evil intention and desire, and to fortify the larva's life by new meditations about the same theme. But it can also attach itself to another man, who has certain astral and mental affinity with the first one. We then say that a larva has left one man and fastens itself, like a leech, to another. How can we free ourselves from such larvas, no matter whether our own or of foreign origin? I can recommend 3 means. 1. A conscious effort of the will in the form of a desire not to succumb to the evil entity, to defy it, to expel it, to act like a painter who looks with contempt on his own obscene creation. 2. To concentrate mentally on another object, and not to allow any thought about the larva to enter into the mind. Frequent thinking about the chosen object will cut the possibility of attending to the larva. Prayer is the best and most recommended means of this kind, because every prayer is an act of concentration, and every act of concentration can be considered as a form of prayer, no matter if it is directed to God, man himself, or even to the devil, depending upon the nature of the concentration. As the devil, we understand, from the tarot's point of view, a picture of higher origin deformed to the ultimate depths reached through the synthesis of all anarchy and disorders. This means of concentration may be compared to the method of turning away from an unwanted picture so as to contemplate another, more desirable one. 3. The use of the power of realization based on the physical plane. That is the destruction of the larva with a magic sword, which consists of a metallic blade with an insulated hilt made from dry timber, ebonite, or nowadays from plastic. A thick woolen glove will also serve the purpose. The action of the magic sword is based on the astral tourbillon's property of changing their characters so strongly in the proximity of a sharp metallic projection that in the event of the sword entering a ganglion of a larva, it will bring about its full disintegration. This means that larvas should be sought for in the aura of persons attacked by them, for they will usually adhere to the astrosome of a man like a leech. This method is similar to the destruction of the whole of an obscene picture by the annihilation of the canvas on which it is painted. Imagine that an intelligent and well-disposed man, who is able to concentrate, is thinking about a good idea, giving it a certain form. He may then find others who have the same or similar ideas, and so a circle of men may come into being, who are all thinking along the same lines but in a different form. It is as if every one of them is repeating the drawing of a plan, placing a pencil again and again onto the same contours. The thing grows in strength, develops an astrosome, and becomes an egregor, or collective entity. Such an egregor, like each astrosome, defends, heals, and even resuscitates the physical bodies of its members, rousing them to activities and realization of the principal idea incorporated in that egregor. So, for example, an egregor of benevolent society may urge its physical members to still more activities and work, and the attracting of new members. Egregors belonging to organizations and nations which are inimical to one another are able to fight on the astral plane, while their human beings fight in the physical world. If on the physical plane, enemies destroy the bodies of members of a particular egregor, their astrosomes fortify the egregor on the astral plane. Recall the persecution of Christians by the Jews and pagans in the early days of the new religion. The former won the fight because they were stronger on the astral plane. That is why the church, at that time, said that the blood of martyrs is the best seed for new Christians. More particulars about egregors will be given in the analysis of the 11th Arcanum.